Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're listening through the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download, free to use, and sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You can call or text into the show. Producer Ray standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. I won't waste any more time because we got a lot to discuss here. Let's start with the Denver Nuggets last night. And I would love to sit here and say that I was surprised by what happened last night, but I'm not. Not at all. Not in the least. And I was thinking about it, and I think we sometimes pile too much stuff into all of this. And what I mean by that is I think there are things that go on with this basketball team that distract us from what the real core issue of this team is. But I think last night it was on full display. You know, the most difficult thing about winning a second championship, back to back or just a second time in the span of a few years with the same basic group of players, it's not about keeping the talent together as much as it is about having the same will to win that you did when you won your first. And I think the first year after the Nuggets won a title, it was almost accepted that they weren't going to be able to have the same desire. They climbed the mountain. Everybody's gunning for them. They have the target on their back. It was just going to be difficult for them to repeat. But we're 2 more years after that. And it just seems like this team doesn't want to win a title as much as they did 3 years ago. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I don't think it's a lack of talent with this team. I don't. I think it's a lack of will. Game 2, David Adelman talked repeatedly about rebounding and second chance points. That's effort. Rebounding is effort. That's wanting to win more than your opponent. The Nuggets clearly didn't in Game 2. Game 3 of a 1-1 series, a game that historically ends up deciding a series such as this. And what you saw was a team that just could not replicate the desire to win. They couldn't match Minnesota, a team that is getting hungrier by the year as they have yet to win a title. The Nuggets just can't match that. And I said it after the Jaden McDaniels comments, calling out the Nuggets by name, calling them bad defenders. I said in that moment, you wish that the Nuggets had a dog, right? Someone who isn't afraid to go back at someone who says that. And because I think you as a fan felt like that needed to be answered verbally first. Obviously, the best way to go back at Jaden McDaniels is to have a good game last night, which the Denver Nuggets did not do. But in the moment, you wanted somebody on the Denver Nuggets to say, who's this guy? Like David Adelman dropped the I can't wait for his podcast line, and that was the strongest thing that any Nugget said. And I chalked it up to, well, they just don't really have one of those guys. They don't have a Draymond Green or a Dylan Brooks. They don't have talkers. And I guess to some degree I was okay with it. But now you look back after last night and you're like, they didn't do anything to answer what Jaden McDaniels said. Jaden McDaniels just called them out by name, the best players on this team by name, and no one did anything about it. Here was Jaden McDaniels after the game last night talking about just why he gets so amped up when it comes to the Denver Nuggets. As a Nuggets fan, you may hate that guy right now, but deep down, don't you wish he was on your side? I mean, he's talking about what a rivalry really means. It's just the name on the front of the jersey. I don't like him. That healthy level of sports hate. You know, this series back and forth, the back and forth nature of it would lead you to believe it's a rivalry. I think the emotions are on one side of the equation. The Timberwolves hate the Nuggets more than the Nuggets hate them, and that's a problem. And it's a problem that you got clowned by Jaden McDaniels after game 2, and you did nothing about it in the days leading up to game 3, and especially on game 3. You did nothing about it. And, you know, it may not be your taste to have somebody like Jaden McDaniels. Maybe it doesn't. I kind of wish he was on the Denver Nuggets. But you definitely want that type of player on the court. The closest thing the Nuggets have is Aaron Gordon, and he was out of the game. And I've called him the heart of this team, and the heart was out of the Denver Nuggets. I don't think I can say anything more apropos than that, because it didn't look like the Nuggets had heart last night in a game that historically is a must-win. And the thing about it is the Nuggets just don't have another player that's even close to Aaron Gordon in terms of doing the little things and doing the hard things in order to make life easier for your two stars. And I'm not saying Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray don't deserve criticism. Like, one's an all-star, one's the best player in the world. You got to play better. You got to play better than what you did last night. But where is a single other player understanding that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray mean everything to this team? Where's another guy to step up and try to do some of the things that Aaron Gordon does? They don't have one player like that. At least they didn't last night. Nobody's setting screens. Everyone's just doing the thing that they do so often, which is stand around and wait for Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray to do something. You're in a fight here. Your season is on the line here. If you're Christian Brown, you better be doing something to free one of those two guys up. No, you're just for all the crap that Michael Porter got. I mean, at the very least, they got multiple Michael Porters, or maybe Michael Porter was a little bit tougher and willing to do a little bit more of the dirty work than people gave him credit for. Here's David Adelman on basically the lack of physicality that his team showed that got them in that early hole. Um, I would have thought that would have been the game plan going into game 3. Perhaps David Adelman misjudged his team a little bit, and we'll see how different it looks in game 4. But when these playoffs are over, and it's looking like it's sooner rather than later, we're going to inevitably start talking about what the Denver Nuggets need. Right? We do it every offseason. I don't want to hear anything more about surround Nikola Jokic with shooters. I'm done with shooters. I don't want any of them. The Nuggets are full of shooters, and not a single one of them can make a shot. I want guys like the Timberwolves have that are going to, they see a seam in the defense and they attack it. They go to the rim. I want the Denver Nuggets to find every Draymond Green, Dillon Brooks type player that they can find. And it's not just that this team needs an infusion of toughness. They need an infusion of urgency. Even when I'm listening to the Nuggets today, we're not going to panic. We're not going to panic. Well, you got to do something more than the emotion you're showing. I get it. You don't want to panic, but how about picking a different word? It's too laid back. It's too laid back, this team. They're in the fight of their lives. They're about to bow out in the first round again. I guess they made it to the second round, but even worse, regressing from where they finished last year. They need an infusion of want to, and I think what that is, they need more guys that are starving to win a title and will join this team and do everything in their power to help the Nuggets do that, because they will think they had won the lottery being able to play with a duo like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And because there are enough players on this team, and I'm going to look at Christian Brown again, that were a part of that championship team, somehow they think that they've arrived. And the fact of the matter is, they just haven't. They are still the role players. They're still the grunts. Do that kind of work to help out your star players. That's what the Nuggets need more than anything from a player standpoint. And they need a coach that's going to bring that out of them. If you can't change enough of the personnel, the coach has got to try and dig down deep and pull that stuff out of his team. I said before this series, if the Denver Nuggets lose, we're going to be looking at David Adelman. It's going to be an indictment on him, and it's going to make us wonder whether the Nuggets made the right call in the first place. And I'm not saying that firing Michael Malone was the wrong choice, because there were signs that his message had gotten stale, which makes me wonder if this is more a personnel issue, even more so than a coach issue. But as much as I believe David Adelman wants to win a title, right, wants to be the head coach of a title-winning team, I don't know if he can coax the fight out of this team. By the way, game 1, he talked about rebounding second chance points. Nuggets were minus 13 on the glass. Aaron Gordon makes a difference in that game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And it just makes him all the more valuable. The question is, can you continue to pay this guy what you're paying this guy and rely on this guy when it now looks like 2 years in a row now he's going to be severely limited or not available when you need him the most? It's not about who Aaron Gordon is on the court, because they need 10 Aaron Gordons. They only got one, and he didn't play last night. So Aaron Gordon makes a difference in that game, but not enough of a difference. Not enough. I knew that the Nuggets were going to lose last night when Aaron Gordon was ruled out. But I mean, it was bad. But again, I'm not totally surprised. Aaron Gordon plays in that game. I don't know if that makes it the ultimate difference. And they win that game. Nikola Jokic said they knew 2 days ago he wasn't going to play. So my thought about how jarring it would be to expect to have Aaron Gordon and you don't have him. Nikola Jokic admitted he knew 2 days ago Aaron Gordon wasn't going to play. They were already making plans. They had enough time to prepare, and that's what you got. That's with 2 days to prepare. All these things, like especially the toxicity between Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, the debate, young players or vets. I think it distracted us. I think it distracted the Denver Nuggets organization from what the true thing is. I don't care if they're young or they're old. I think it's a mentality. I think it's a makeup of the players that is a bigger issue here than their experience in the league. And maybe more vets would give you a better chance to have a team closer to what Minnesota has. But I'm just saying we were debating whether it was worth trusting young guys or trusting veterans, and I don't think we were asking the right question. I think the right question that's been under my nose this whole time, and I guess we've touched on it from time to time, but really it needs to be elevated and put at the forefront of this conversation. Does this team still want to win a title? Or better yet, does this team still possess the desire to do what it takes to win a title? I think there are a few players on this team that do. Not enough, because they went up against a team that every single one of those players is dying to win a title. Edwards, Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, Dante DiVincenzo, all of these guys are unbelievably hungry. And they could have let their guard down after beating game 2. Oh, we did the job. They could have relaxed. They didn't. They took it to the Denver Nuggets and absolutely embarrassed them last night. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on game 3. How much longer do you think this is going to go? Tell you the latest with Aaron Gordon, any adjustments that the Nuggets are looking to make. But again, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we don't have this problem with the other team that calls Ball Arena home. We'll talk game 3, Avs and Kings, next. I got a tweet from Dave on X that I saw this morning, and he was right. I gotta tell him. He said next time, watch the Avs live and tape the Nuggets. Well, lesson learned there. So yes, it went much better for the Colorado Avalanche last night in their game 3, which is kind of the crux of the whole conversation today. Is you juxtapose these two teams, and you're like, why is it that the Avalanche are doing what they're doing, and then you look at what the Nuggets and they're doing what they're doing? And the easy answer is to say that the Kings are not as good of a hockey team as the Wolves are a basketball team, and that would be fair, but I don't think that goes far enough. Here's Jared Bednar last night after the 4-2 win, discussing the leadership of his team. And I think that's more what this is. Why we're seeing the Avalanche taking a commanding 3-0 series lead, and we see the Denver Nuggets getting run out of the gym in a game they almost had to have. I think it's the group of players. I think it's the makeup of the players. I think, and there are a couple of different groups of players within the Colorado Avalanche. And he mentioned Gabriel Landeskog, right? You have three guys in Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. Well, more than that, really, MacKinnon, Landeskog. I think Lehkonen, I don't know that he's a super vocal guy, but he's certainly someone you watch and saying he's doing the little things to help you win in the playoffs, right? Nazem Kadri, who they brought back. These are just guys that they're just wired to never be satisfied. They still want to put in the work, the same amount of work they did 4 years ago when they won a Stanley Cup. That desire still burns within them in a way that I can't see it with the Denver Nuggets right now. And Gabriel Landeskog, that's easy to see because of what he's gone through. But I think MacKinnon is wired this way. I think Lehkonen plays the game this way. I think Nazem Kadri's wired this way. And I think it's part of the reason why they wanted Nazem Kadri back. There were other options especially for a third line center. They wanted Naz back because of his makeup. And then you mix in new players like Brock Nelson and Scott Wedgwood, who I think are the right combination of impactful. And that's the other thing with the Denver Nuggets. You know, I understand it's not simply good enough for the Nuggets to want to win again or desire to win again or do the little things. You do have to have talent. Right? If there's a player on the end of your bench that is just the most competitive guy you've ever come across, but he gets, and I'll, not to pick on him, but I'll use Spencer Jones as the example here. So Spencer Jones last night, I think he tried really hard. I do. That's a big spot. That's a tough spot for him to come into. And I thought he tried to make an impact in that game. But Julius Randle dunks on him, goes right at him and dunks on him. He wouldn't be doing that. He would settle for a jumper if that was Aaron Gordon. And then twice in the second half, Spencer Jones nearly gets his ankles broken. And again, I'm not picking on the guy. But I'm just saying you do have to blend being an impactful player and that desire to win. And it's not easy. It's not easy to find that in one player. But I think that the Avalanche have gone out, as much as it's been about, creating depth on this team. It's guys that are really hungry to have success. Brock Nelson, with all those years with the Islanders, I think really wants to win. And then I don't think the desire to win is embodied by anyone better than Scott Wedgwood. For everything that he's gone through, at how hard he's worked to finally get an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. And here's Scott Wedgwood actually after the game talking about the work that he has put in order to get here and be an impactful member of the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, that's what I'm talking about right there. Scott Wedgwood at times feeling like he was on the verge of being out of the league, but still pushing and still trying to add something to his game to improve that inch, as he's talking about. It sounds like that speech that Al Pacino gives towards the end of Any Given Sunday. I mean, Scott Wedgwood embodies that. He tried to improve every single day. And if he would have stopped at any point, he would have been out of the league. His margin for error was so thin. But he just kept working and working and working. And now he's got an opportunity and he's not going to squander it. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to name two other players who have been as good for the Colorado Avalanche in this series as Scott Wedgwood. I mean, that game 3 could have easily gone to LA and no one would have blinked. It was, of course, LA would win that game. Down 2-0, they're desperate, they're back home in front of their fans, all that kind of stuff. No, nobody would have said, oh, the Avalanche are in trouble if LA would have won last night. And the way that game started, it really not even started, what it was for 2/3 of that game. I mean, weren't you just waiting at some point for LA to break it open? I mean, the Avs, they didn't play their best game last night by any stretch of the imagination, but they stayed in the fight. They didn't let go. They kept battling. And the guy that allowed them to keep doing that was Scott Wedgwood. 24 saves. He allows one power play goal. That was late in the game. And the even strength goal, he's basically, he had to deal with his own player as in addition to Trevor Moore, like as he's sliding across the crease. Like I don't usually love going through goal by goal and saying that's on this person, but I'm just underlining how that was not a save that Wedgwood makes easily. So he made every save he was supposed to make. And he made, again, a handful of them that most average goaltenders don't make. And that kept the Avalanche in the game despite not really figuring things out. And then from there, the Avs just were opportunistic, which you can be, or in which you have to be, when you aren't clicking on all cylinders, when you can't match the desperation level of your opponent. You got to be opportunistic. You got to be in it and wait for the moments that you can pop up and make an impact. And I thought a couple of their goals were absolutely that. Like, yeah, the first goal was kind of a junky one, goofy one, lucky if you want to call it that. Bounces off the wall and beats Forsberg. I get that. But look earlier in the play, Nick Waugh keeping the play alive, keeping the puck on the end boards to feed Gabriel Landeskog. Like, that was the Avalanche still working, and they were rewarded for it. And then certainly the shorthanded goal was that. Avs penalty kill has been very good in this series. Not a great pass. They block it off to the races with the 2-on-1, and they convert. I think the Kings could certainly look at themselves and feel like we gave that game to Colorado. But the credit that you give the Avalanche is that they just didn't. I mean, the fight was there. The effort level was there. They were just a step slow, and they just weren't quite as locked in on every possession as LA. But they stayed in it. They kept pushing. Scott Wedgwood makes a few saves to keep the game tight, and the Avs pounce on almost every mistake LA makes in the game. And I don't see that kind of an effort coming from the basketball team of record in this state. Not enough. Not last night. But that's championship DNA. Thought it coursed through the veins of players on the Avalanche and the Nuggets alike. Seems like it's only one team right now. But the Avs take a 3-0 lead with a 4-2 win over LA. They'll try to pull off the sweep. Game 4 is Sunday afternoon-ish, 4:30 on Extra Sports 1300. Taking your thoughts on Game 3 for both the Nuggets and the Avs, 719-247-1313. Let's also get into the NFL draft last night. No picks for the Denver Broncos, and I thought it was kind of a weird first round, and I'll explain further next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Night one, round one of the NFL draft last night, certainly tertiary in the attention that most people around here paid to it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't intriguing. I thought it was a very interesting first round of the NFL draft, and I thought there were a lot of reaches. I thought a lot of teams reached, and I think it started at 4. Now, I feel bad for Jeremiah Love going to Arizona because I don't think Arizona has the necessary. It reminds me a little bit of Genty going to the Raiders. And I think Jeremiah, if they were both in the same draft, Jeremiah Love would easily be the top running back over Ashton Genty. And I think that's part of the calculus here for the Arizona Cardinals is Jeremiah Love, I think, can succeed without all the things in place. Like Ashton Genty needs, he needs a good offensive line. He needs blocking to be able to get free. I mean, you can use Jeremiah Love in a lot of different ways. I guess I don't fault the Arizona Cardinals for taking him because of who he is. He's the best player in this draft. And you can get him at 3. I guess you do it, even though they were trying desperately to trade out of that pick. But Arizona needs a lot of stuff. So we'll see what they do with the rest of their picks in this draft. I thought the big first reach was Carnell Tate. I mean, this is a guy, he's talented, don't get me wrong. This is a guy, he's never been a number 1 wide receiver. And he's being drafted to be the number 1 wide receiver for Cam Ward. I mean, I thought 4, and I've started to work through this because teams in the Bo Nix and the Broncos is the perfect example of that. We look at the entirety of the draft. These teams are just looking at their pick. The Tennessee Titans wanted a wide receiver. They like Carnell Tate, perhaps because of the injury concerns with Jordan Tyson. I think Jordan Tyson's a better. If I'm going to make him my number 1 receiver, I bet on Jordan Tyson more than I would Carnell Tate. It seems like the New Orleans Saints agree with me. But I don't want to push too hard on the Titans for drafting a wide receiver. That was a need of theirs. They had the pick. It was where it was. They went with who they thought. They ran their own race, right? The Broncos with Bo Nix, we thought it was too high to take Bo Nix, but the Broncos didn't have a second-round pick. And it's like, we got to take, if we like this guy, we got to take him now. But I mean, 4 is high for a wide receiver in this class. And I don't think that that's the one I would have taken first. So obviously I like Arizona or New Orleans getting Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, formerly of CSU or CU, excuse me. But I just thought a lot of people, a lot of teams reached. And, that's, again, they're running their own race. They're having their own draft. We got to get this. This is when we're on the clock. We're going to get it. So, okay, that's fine. But I think it presents opportunities for other teams to seize on that. And I look at probably my 2 favorite picks of the first round were the Cowboys getting Caleb Downs all the way at 11. This is a guy I thought would go to the Giants in the top 5 because I see a lot of Kyle Hamilton, that kind of impact on a defense. And with John Harbaugh being in New York now, I thought that Caleb Downs would have been a perfect fit. But Arvell Reese kind of falls to them because the Cardinals aren't able to trade out and the Titans reach for a wide receiver. I don't blame New York for getting another pass rusher. And they were able, because they had a plethora of pass rushers, they were able to spin off Dexter Lawrence, get the 10th pick, and they came back and get an offensive lineman. I thought, but it's easy to point out the teams that had 2 picks and say, oh, they did a great job because they got 2 free players when everyone else only got 1. So I don't blame the Giants for taking Arvell Reese, but I think it was the Cowboys' gain because I think Caleb Downs there, I think that's an awesome pick. And I love Reuben Bain going to Tampa at 15. And I know that the story came out about the accident a couple years ago. I don't know if that is that why he fell. It very well could be, but as far as a football player, I know arm length is a little bit of a question with him. I think to get him at 15, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think that was great. So I love Downs to the Cowboys and Bain to the Buccaneers. I actually, and I know another team with 2 picks, I like the way that the Browns went about it because they get an offensive lineman first, right? They played the draft board well. One, they traded back with Kansas City because Kansas City had to get up and get Mansour Delane out of LSU. But they trade back, get more capital. They still are able to grab arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft. And then they're able to come back later and get a wide receiver. Maybe not the best wide receiver available, but they're able. I think they played the draft board the right way, and I think Concepcion out of Texas A&M, I think is going to be good. You know who the happiest guy in the world is? Shedeur Sanders. Get a protector and a weapon. That is if he does indeed become the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. We got all the time in the world to talk about that. But I do like what the Cleveland Browns did with their 2 picks. And then I thought there were a few other reaches. I don't like that the Chiefs went defensive tackle with their 2nd pick, although there was a run on tackles. Thanks, Ray. So I guess it was more, and then Lomu of Utah goes to New England right before them. So I guess looking at the draft board, the likely outcome for Kansas City, but I'll just tell you, I was hoping corner. So obviously Mansour, I was pleased about, did not love that they did not get an impact offensive lineman with their 2nd pick. And then the worst news, probably if you're a Bronco fan, out of the 1st round, you knew a lot of guys would go off the board that you wanted. Jadarian Price going 32 to Seattle. That's a little bit of a gut punch. And that is, in terms of the mocks, that is a big jump for Jadarian Price. But he was always going to be the 2nd running back off the board after his teammate Jeremiah Love. It makes sense for Seattle. But that was a guy that seemed like he was going to be around for Denver. If nothing else, for the Denver Broncos to realistically be able to move up to get him. But Seattle grabs him at the end of the 1st round. But biggest takeaway to me is that some teams reached, and that created opportunities for other teams to be able to maybe get a more impactful player than they were. I don't know if they were planning. I don't know if the Cowboys were thinking they were going to get Caleb Downs. But I think they're happy they got him. So we'll see how this impacts. I think there are a couple guys. Ian Achor, who Pittsburgh took at 21. That was a guy I had discussed as maybe being a trade up target for Denver. Obviously, not. It didn't even come close. And then it was Jadarian Price as well, but still a fair amount of players that I was looking at as potential Denver Broncos available tonight. But the way the draft board has gone feels like for the players that I'm thinking of, George Payton might have to move up. Probably will definitely have to move up, honestly, the way I'm looking at things. But George Payton said don't that coming into the first round was not going to happen, but the second round moving up, possibility for the Broncos here a little over an hour from now, round 2 and 3 tonight from Pittsburgh. I'll take your thoughts on what you thought of your team's picks. If you're not a Broncos fan, obviously, because Broncos fans sat this one out. 719-247-1313. Of course, if you're a Broncos fan, now that the first round is over, who are you looking at for Denver to take very late in round 2? I ask you, I know we only got like a minute, Ray, but what were your thoughts on what your Steelers did and what they did not do because of your in-state rivals there? Yes. Yes, if you miss that, Makai Lemon, the wide receiver from USC, was on the phone with the Steelers because the Steelers were getting ready to pick him, and the Philadelphia Eagles jumped up and grabbed Lemon, leading to a lot of confusion and disbelief. But you think that your team recovered okay? Yeah. Unhappy because they wanted Lemon, or unhappy in a vacuum with the draft pick of the tackle out of Arizona State? Yeah. Mm. Could have been a little bit. Right. Something that you thought you were getting that was taken away from you. I understand that impulse, certainly. We'll talk more draft coming up, but in the meantime, Nuggets down 2-1. Where do they go from here, and what's bothering Nikola Jokic? You're listening to Drive Time Sports. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Appreciate you watching the show. Anywhere you scroll at 740 KVR and at Extra Sports 1300 while you are there, give us a like, subscribe, follow. My self-esteem is directly tied to the number of likes and follows I get in these stations get on social media. So just letting you know, if you care about me, you will do one of those things. And you can also drop a comment on the live stream as well, and we'll get through it. Three topics really on the table today. Game threes for both the Nuggets and the Avalanche, and then the NFL draft, which will commence at 5. Broncos got to still wait a while, but I don't know. I think George Payton might have something brewing. I know George Payton, I think, wants to keep all his picks, but there's the other Payton in the room. So we'll see if the Broncos end up getting aggressive tonight. But there are a few players that I think would fit well with the Denver Broncos. I'll get into those before the second round begins at 5 o'clock. In the meantime, new injury report for the Nuggets just dropped, because that's what you've been reduced to if you're a Nuggets fan, is just hoping that the injury report gives you some good news, and it does not. Aaron Gordon with left calf tightness is still questionable. He was downgraded to questionable yesterday afternoon, was ultimately ruled out. David Adelman did not know after the game last night what his status would be for Game 4, which just fills you with confidence. And the injury report will do the same thing, as he is not at least in a better place than he maybe was 24 hours ago. Peyton Watson was seen taking some shots and being more in with the team, but he is out for Game 4. And Peyton Watson defensively maybe could make a bit of a difference here for the Denver Nuggets. But right now, let's be honest here. I mean, there are leaks in the dam everywhere. And Ray and I were having this conversation during the break. And I think Ray was right in his assessment that he gave me. I don't think that the Nuggets defense was bad in the first quarter at all. I mean, it's fine. But right now, you got this situation with Denver that if it's not the defense, it's the rebounding. That was the issue in Game 2. David Adelman didn't hate his defense, but hated the fact they didn't rebound the ball. So if it's not the defense, it's rebounding. If it's not rebounding, it's that they're not making shots. And the fact that they're getting out rebounded in this series is a problem when they're missing shots. And if it's not the offense, it's the defense. And if it's not the role players, it's the stars. It's this boat is taking on water fast. And I don't know what the Denver Nuggets do to turn it around. I'll tell you one thing. My best idea is Nikola Jokic gets back to being the best player in the world. Like, that would be a start. Here's Nikola Jokic last night on not just the struggles shooting, but just the overall lack of playmaking that he was able to take part in last night in the loss. And what Nikola Jokic saying there, just to clarify, is that the Timberwolves weren't helping off They weren't double teaming him. They were playing him straight up. And the undertone of that, and maybe Nikola Jokic didn't mean it this way, but I'm, listening to that and watching the game, like nobody's doing anything to get open. And the team has had this as a syndrome for a while. They just get caught standing around and waiting for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic to save them. And Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, let's call it for what it is. They've been bad for 5 straight quarters now. The fourth quarter in game 4, or game 2, the fourth quarter in game 2, and all 4 quarters last night. And I thought Nikola Jokic had the right mentality. Like we had said after game 2, Nikola Jokic needs to get himself going as a starter. Kind of that idea when you're on the airplane and they're telling you before you put on a kid's oxygen mask to put on your own. That's what mentality Nikola Jokic needed to take, because him distributing all over the floor is going to make no difference if he's not getting his. And I thought he tried to come out and do that. But this is where you again give credit to Rudy Gobert. The days of I've got 47, brother, are long gone. The Wolves aren't helping off of anybody else because Rudy Gobert's got this. I mean, it's a stunning development, but we're here now. And there were so many of Jokic's shots that were short. It makes you wonder if he's physically healthy. He's dealt with injuries before. Played through them, but yeah, Gobert's got this. And so these other defenders are not coming over to help, and the Nuggets players aren't doing anything to get open. And I think, something David Adelman said after the game. Actually, Ray, will you play that same clip that you played to start the show when it comes to David Adelman and getting some guys not named Jokic and Murray going? Oh, Ray, are you there? I think Ray has abandoned me. But he was saying that, simplifying things, they got to screen. I mean, they got to do things to open up Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. That's just the reality of where they're at right now, is that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray cannot get good shots on their own. And these other guys are going to have to do more of the dirty work to free them up. And here's the great part about it. If they do that, then they will start reaping the rewards as well, because Minnesota will have to start helping. They'll have to start rotating. And once the Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic get going, then there will be opportunities for these other guys to impact the game. But they got to flip it around. They got to go about it the other way. They got to make sure they get Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic going instead of just standing idly by and waiting for Jokic and Murray. It's 5 straight quarters now. It's 5 quarters of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic looking nothing like the all-star, all-NBA, best player in the world combination that they are. And you give a ton of credit to Minnesota, but I think there's more that the Denver Nuggets can do. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that they didn't do some of that last night. I think they looked at the fourth quarter of game 2 and just went, well, that, guys were tired, whatever. They'll bounce back in game 3. And I get it. It's rare that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray follow up at least, and I thought Jamal Murray overall was very good in game 2, but that they follow up a bad quarter with an entire bad game. I don't think the Nuggets were proactive enough, I guess is the way I would put it. I don't think they were proactive enough in making adjustments into game 3 to make 100% sure that at least Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic got going. Here's Ray, are you back? Oh, okay. Will you play give me the clip of Jamal Murray talking about how the Nuggets bounce back for game 4? And I think Jamal Murray is spot on, but how often have we talked about the starts of games for the Denver Nuggets? You know, the development of Rudy Gobert being able to defend Nikola Jokic and the Minnesota Timberwolves holding down the NBA's best duo, that is a fairly recent development, at least if you compare it to what happened during the regular season. What's not a new development is that the Denver Nuggets don't come out to start these games even close to the way they need to. And you thought it's not just an effort, it's an execution level. Too, again, the biggest problem for the Denver Nuggets right now, I think, is that they just don't want this as much as they did 3 years ago. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are starving for a title. But then you layer on top of that the matchup itself. You layer on top of that the execution level needing to be where it is. I think it starts with the want to, but it takes more than that. And the Nuggets just, I think the problem is they're not even starting with the foundation of what they need to start with. So they can't even layer the other stuff on. You got to lay the foundation first. And the foundation is an answer to a very simple question that seemed, after going on 3 years without a title, you think would be easy to answer in the affirmative. Do you still want this? Or are you good with just the one? And NBA history is littered with all-time greats and teams that, all-time greats that only got one, and teams that you could have sworn were destined to do more than win just one, that's all they ended up with. And look, there's an appreciation that comes through that as well, because we will always have 2023 and what that meant to the organization. But I don't think it was anybody's expectation or anybody's thought in the moment that this was going to be it. And it's looking increasingly likely that it is. We've already talked about the last couple of years, the teams that have passed them. You thought that they course corrected. You thought that they got back on track with the moves they made this offseason. And the result of that is looking increasingly like it's going to be bowing out even earlier in the playoffs. They just, I don't know. And maybe part of me thinks, like, given the situation in the NBA right now with the financial rules and everything, maybe it was somewhat foolhardy to think that the Denver Nuggets would be back, that it was almost a given that they would be. But I say that and I turn around and there's a legit hard salary cap in the other league that is playing in its postseason right now, and the team in Colorado that has won a Stanley Cup, they look well on their way right now. So it can't be just that. It can't be that, how hard it is to repeat or to win another title with the financial rules being what it is. I think, and I started the show saying this, the hardest part about winning another title after you won that first one is replicating that desire. And I didn't see it last night. I didn't see that the Denver Nuggets were determined to take back that series. And game 3, I gave you the numbers. It was as close to a must win as you get, but game 4 is a must win. Is absolutely a must win. And I've seen some people point out other series that the Nuggets have been down 2-1 in, and fair play to them. There are a few. There's one that has occurred since they won a title. I don't think that's a coincidence. The one series that they've been down that they've come back to win is the Clippers series in the first round last year. Since they won a title. Every other series that the Denver Nuggets have been able to battle back and win has all occurred before the Nuggets won a title, which goes directly to my point. The Nuggets, as they were pushing towards their first title, had more fight than this team does. And yes, Minnesota is a bad matchup, but I think maybe Minnesota brings this ugly part of the Denver Nuggets out of them. It exposes it. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on game 3 for the Nuggets and Wolves and where you think this series is going. I think the Wolves are going to win the series. I'll just say that in case there's any confusion. I think the Nuggets are bowing out in this round. And the only thing that can bring me back from that brink is if the Denver Nuggets absolutely, well, I was going to say mop the floor. They just do to Minnesota in game 4 what Minnesota did to them in game 3. Anything short of that. Even they squeak out a win. Obviously, if they lose, they're done. They got to blow out Minnesota tomorrow night. They don't just need to win. They need to blow them out. To even have it enter my mind that they might come back and win this series. And even then, I don't know. Because then what happens? What happens when you go back home for game 5? 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Speaking of Cale Makar, told you going into last night's game, if the Avalanche were going to take a 3-0 series lead, that either he and or Nathan MacKinnon would have to have a impact on the score sheet. And Cale Makar did in one of those patented Cale Makar things, a little shimmy on the blue line. No one can stay with him, and fired a perfect shot by Anton Forsberg. So I think that's important. It was important for last night, but it's important for moving forward. Let's not forget what the Avs are going to be facing. I mean, it almost feels like a complete reset after this round. And the Kings have given the Avs some pushback. They have been a good first round matchup for Colorado. But it just, I'm watching that Stars Minnesota series. It's going to be very different. Very different when the Avs ultimately get through to the next round, whenever that might be. Game 4 is Sunday at 4:30 on Extra Sports 1300. So Cale gone the score sheet, but I think the story when it comes to the forward group for the Avalanche is their depth continuing to show out. And here's Jared Bednar talking about what happens in a playoff series with your best players that causes you to rely on your depth. And this speaks to the whole ethos of the Colorado Avalanche. Right? To win, the Avalanche found out when they won a Stanley Cup what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. You need depth. And they had crazy depth with the season Nazem Kadri had, with the way Logan O'Connor's fourth line played. They had all that depth, and they've been trying to get it back. And they were willing to go to an extreme length, trading Mikko Rantanen to set themselves up to acquire the depth that they needed. But that's making the difference in this series. Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon and Anze Kopitar are canceling each other out. Cale Makar and it's the top lines are canceling each other out. And let's not forget that Trevor Moore is the guy that scored the only even strength goal of the series so far for LA. So it's one of their depth guys that got it done. But Kopitar and Artemi Panarin, they're not scoring 5-on-5. I mean, you expect Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon to fight through that, but I think Jared Bednar is right. Now, moving forward, they have to get Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. I mean, they just have to. You saw last year in the Dallas series, the Stars, arguably the Stars' best player, who, as you well know, used to be on the Avalanche, made a huge difference in that series. So they're going to need Nathan MacKinnon and Makar. They can't have their top guys canceled out by the top guys of the other team. I still think Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar in these playoffs are going to have to remind people why they are two of the 3-4 best players in the world. But the depth of this team, Nick Waugh, Logan O'Connor, but even I talk about this depth with the Denver Nuggets. Like, Arturi Lehkonen is not a depth guy per se. Right? The guy plays in their top 6. He plays on the top line. But he's in, the way Candace Parker and Dwayne Wade put it before, I think it was game 1 for the Nuggets and Wolves, the others. Like depth, you don't have to go far down the roster to find depth. Depth is also outside of the people we are expecting to have an impact, the people we're talking about, looking forward to seeing, who outside of that. And that's where Arturi Lehkonen lives. Still a top 6 guy, still a vitally important player to the Avs, but he's never discussed when anybody is previewing a series with the Colorado Avalanche or a game. It's McKinnon, it's Makar, it's Landeskog, but it's a guy like Arturi Lehkonen as well. I think that I think the Avs close it out on Sunday. I do. I'm not going to be totally surprised if the Kings win, but I mean the first of all, I don't expect the Avalanche to be off like they were in Game 3, and that's really is what's got to stick in the collective craw of the LA Kings, is that I think they can feel like they were the better team for most of that game. I think the Avs will be sharper in Game 4. And I just think the instinct they showed, the want to that they showed, that is lacking with the Denver Nuggets, I think it comes out again. I think they really want to finish this series in 4. If for no other reason than they just really haven't had time to check out that Wild Star series, which has been a lot of fun, and they just want to be able to watch that like the rest of us. I think they do. I think they close it out. And I said going into these 2 series, I said I'm probably giving Minnesota not enough credit and the Kings too much credit. I think we're another night in feeling even more that way. Avs beat the Kings 4-2 and now are 1 win away from eliminating LA and getting set for whoever comes out of the Dallas-Minnesota series. And then things will really ramp up in these playoffs for the Colorado Avalanche. 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on either Game 3. We'll get back into the NFL draft, which the second round starts at the top of the hour with 1 round in the books. Who is left that would look good in orange and blue? Get to that next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. So I mentioned earlier that the Nuggets injury report is unchanged. Aaron Gordon questionable for tomorrow evening's game 4 with left calf tightness, and Peyton Watson ruled out for game 4. Meanwhile, and this is just salt in the wound, Anthony Edwards is off of the Wolves injury report. Being able to sit the entirety of the second half certainly did Anthony Edwards some good last night, didn't it? So the news just keeps getting worse for the Nuggets and better for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think we all know where this is going, but we'll ride along, won't we? Game 4 is tomorrow night, 6:30. You can hear that game on 740 KVOR. I will be on Extra with the Switchbacks in Phoenix tomorrow night. So make a note of that. If you're driving around and want to listen to the Nuggets, it will be on 740 KVOR tomorrow night. And then on Sunday afternoon at 4:30, Avs will be on Extra Sports 1300. So the draft. I think if you're a Broncos fan, I think you're fine. I think you're good. I don't know that you look at a first round in which a lot of teams reached, and the Broncos have Jalen Waddle. I think you look at it and you go, you're okay. The Jadarian Price is the one, I think, because a lot of mock drafts over the last few days had Jadarian Price going to the Denver Broncos. And just like Ray with Mekhi Lemon, if you're expecting something and it gets taken away from you, it's kind of rough to get past. But given how Price was the second best running back in this draft, and the Seattle Seahawks just happened to lose a running back that you may have heard of, he won Super Bowl MVP. I wonder where that guy ever ended up. I'm not quite sure. But they needed a running back. And this second best guy off the board, Seahawks had their own, ran their race, did their draft, and I think that's a pretty good pickup for Seattle. But as I look at the draft board for today, I think 3 guys that I have talked about as being, I think, on the Broncos' radar, or at least should be. I think you got the 2 inside linebackers, Anthony Hill Jr. of Texas, Jacob Rodriguez of Texas Tech. I think either would be good. I think Anthony Hill is a little bit more athletic, but Jacob Rodriguez being kind of the leader of that very expensive defense that the Red Raiders had. I think if the Broncos end up with either one of them, I think that you'd be happy if you're a Broncos fan. Certainly some depth there has been sapped, and they're talking about moving Jonah Ellis inside. So clearly they want to get somebody at that position, and both Hill and Rodriguez are still on the board. And then offensive linemen, it's kind of slim pickings unless you're talking about a developmental lineman. There are still those guys available. Looking longer term, but I think with the injuries that the Broncos sustained on their offensive line this year, with a Ben Powers, you kind of look at Ben Powers on that line and go, how much longer is he going to be on that line? Manuel Pregnon, interior offensive lineman from Oregon. He's a Duck, so he'll get along with Troy Franklin and Bo Nix. Those were 3 guys that I had mentioned in previous days that I think would all be good picks by the Denver Broncos. We'll see if here's where things get a little dicey for the Denver Broncos. I think you are okay with how the first round went, and I don't think you had any other choice if you're a Broncos fan. I mean, you had to sit there, and you got Jalen Waddle. Your first round pick is Jalen Waddle. You're fine. But if today follows the same trend and teams start reaching, I wonder which way that cuts. Because I said in the first round, I think that the Cowboys made out like bandits getting Caleb Downs. I mean, I know they had 2 picks. I love them getting Caleb Downs. Love Ruben Bain going to Tampa Bay. Probably my 2 favorite picks of the first round were at 11 and 15. So it could break that way for the Denver Broncos, where teams, I see a lot of wide receivers on all these best player available boards. If you see some wide receivers start to go, I think that bodes well for the Denver Broncos. But if there are other teams that are looking at interior offensive line, they're looking for, the off-ball linebackers, it may have to do some reconfiguring on your big board to figure out who the Broncos should take with that pick coming up at pick number 62. One player, I know I've seen this guy mentioned a lot with the Denver Broncos, Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. Next best running back on the board for most people. The reason why I don't like Mike Washington as much as I like Jadarian Price. Washington is the burst is a little bit slower. He had a little bit tougher time hitting the hole, and that's something that Sean Payton prioritizes. He likes guys, and RJ Harvey does this. And if we're talking about a guy the Broncos draft at running back tonight, could be getting reps over RJ Harvey. Well, RJ Harvey hits the hole quickly. Mike Washington didn't, or at least didn't at Arkansas. So I don't know. I kind of think, it's so tough. It's kind of like what the Broncos were in with Bo Nix a couple years ago. You look and they got nothing in the third round. They got the 1 pick tonight. And in an ideal world, a Rodriguez or a Hill, or probably even better, a Pregnon are available. And you get one of those guys and you go running back later. But I look at someone, I really like Emmett Johnson of Nebraska. But I don't know that he's going to be around in the 4th round. So it'll be interesting to see where the Broncos go here. And I'm sure they're going to say best player available. But even George Payton has acknowledged that if you have 2 players that are similar, are almost equal in their grades, you're going to go need with that pick. And that's always been the thing. People talk, we don't go need based. Well, you do if the players are close. As much as I could see the Denver Broncos getting a running back within their first 2 or 3 picks of this draft, whenever those picks might be, I think you could certainly say there are bigger needs on this football team. And we'll see where the Broncos go from here. But the bottom line is, and it just reinforces what you probably thought when you saw that the Broncos gave up their first round pick for Jalen Waddle. I'm good. I'm good with this. I'll take Jalen Waddle. And with the teams that were reaching for wide receivers, it kind of, if you're a Broncos fan, you're like, well, I'm glad the Broncos weren't one of them reaching for a wide receiver like so many teams did. Yeah, I did not like Carnell Tate going 4 overall to the Tennessee Titans. I also am a little bit sad. I don't know why, but and Ray mentioned this before we went on air. as we were just going through talking about some of the picks. I actually hate that Kenyon Sadiq went to New York. I would have loved to see him in a little bit, shall we say, better situation than that. I'm not saying Kenyon Sadiq becomes the second coming of Kyle Pitts, but I do not like that landing spot for him. I really don't. And I don't like that Jeremiah Love ended up with Arizona. I don't, because Cardinals got a lot more to get if they're going to maximize getting Jeremiah Love. And look, the argument is you see a player that is the best in this draft, which Jeremiah Love is, and he's available at 3. Yeah, go get him. I do like that the Jets got David Bailey, though, over Arvell Reese. I think David Bailey is a little bit more ready to go now. And other than getting interceptions, I don't know that had too much problem with the Jets defense over the years. And then there's Ty Simpson going 13 to LA. And there's some damage control being done, I think, by the Rams. I don't know what to believe. So if you miss this, so you probably saw that Ty Simpson went to the Rams. And I think the initial reaction was positive, right? The idea that the Rams have their quarterback of the future. They still have Matthew Stafford. They don't have to start Ty Simpson right away. It seemed like a really good situation for Ty Simpson to go into. And then the press conference rolls around and it looks like Sean McVay hates the pick. But like his body language, just like it seemed like Sean McVay wanted a player that can help him win games this year. With Seattle being where, and we fill in these perceptions with our own stuff, right? So you're looking at the Rams, who are really good, but the defending Super Bowl champions are in your division. The 49ers, stop me if you've heard this one before, should be healthier this year. And you look at Sean McVay's reaction and you feel like Sean McVay's thinking, I need a player that can help me this year, given the division that I'm in. And now insiders are coming out, and we've unfortunately kind of rethought the way we view the information coming out of these insiders over recent days, haven't we? But a lot of the inside reporting is, no, it's just McVay not wanting to be too over the moon because he still has Matthew Stafford and doesn't want to make it seem like the Rams are pushing him out the door. Well, to use a line from Mad Men, that's what the money's for. Today, the Rams have given Matthew Stafford a contract extension. That's what that's for. You don't need to hide any enthusiasm that you have about Ty Simpson to protect Matthew Stafford's feelings if you're just going to turn around the day after and give him a contract extension. That's what that's for. That's what the money's for. I don't know that I buy that Sean McVay was thrilled and just trying to be respectful to Matthew Stafford. I think I'm right on this. I think he wanted a player that could help them this year. And we know that Sean McVay, even though he's still a young man in the coaching game, we always feel like he's, a year away from being gone. So this guy's certainly he's not going to hang around forever. And I don't know that Ty Simpson being his quarterback is going to necessarily keep him in LA longer. I think he wants to win now. I think there was some truth in that body language of Sean McVay. And it's not anti-Ty Simpson necessarily. I think he's in a great spot. I don't love Ty Simpson as a as a prospect, but I love Sean McVay as a coach. I love what the Rams do. I mean, Goff, they make a Super Bowl with him. They win a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. They, resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. They've won games with lesser quarterbacks than those three names I just mentioned. Love the spot he ended up in. And I think there's such a disparity between how good Fernando Mendoza is and how good Ty Simpson is that I don't think it's as easy to say where they landed is going to ultimately make the difference. But Ty Simpson ended up in the better spot, unequivocally. But I think Mendoza is really good. But that's going to be the big question. And it's already the question today. When is Mendoza going to start? I don't think he's starting right away. I don't. And I don't think he should. Like it's a case by case basis. But like comparing it to Bo Nix, the Broncos certainly what they had with revamping the offensive line the way they did when Sean Payton arrived, the talent they already had in terms of pass rushers when he took over, like and Sean McVay being the head coach. I mean, they were an environment ready for Bo Nix to start week one. And also Bo Nix, because he played 18 years of college football, more ready than your average NFL quarterback prospect. And Mendoza's been playing a lot of college football too. But like the Raiders, they're not ready to win now. They're not. And you brought in Kirk Cousins. So let Kirk Cousins play. They're not going to do anything in that division. I think the Gazette asked today, are the Raiders going to be a threat to the Broncos in the AFC West? Like, what are we doing here? Are they going to be a threat to anybody in the AFC West this year? I think that's what we need to be asking. Don't get me wrong. They're finally doing it the right way. And I like Clint Kubiak and I like Fernando Mendoza. They're finally doing what they should have done. And it would just go into a full-on rebuild. But when you do that, you're not a threat in the immediate future to these other three teams that all three can wake up tomorrow morning and feel they are capable of winning a Super Bowl. Now, you may not agree with that sentiment, but I promise you, people in LA, Kansas City, and Denver all believe their teams are capable. You're not waking up in Las Vegas believing that you're going to win a Super Bowl. Raiders being a threat. They're not a threat to anybody in the AFC West next year. Come on now. But they did good. They did good. I'm not trashing on the Raiders. They're doing this the right way. I love Fernando Mendoza. I think it's going to work out long-term with he and Clint Kubiak. Second round of the NFL draft begins at the top of the hour. So does our three stories that are driving the show. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Friday, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, the apps of those two radio stations, which you should totally download because they're free and they rock, and you can listen to any of the shows on these two radio stations through them. And they are both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Or if you are watching the live stream anywhere you scroll, we certainly do appreciate your patronage. Round 2 of the NFL draft getting ready to commence. The Denver Broncos have to wait a while, so we'll see how quickly this thing moves. The picks last night were in. I don't know what the deal was with the picks, but I kept hearing that the picks, like 3 picks down, were all in. And this is probably the reason why Mekhi Lemon got stolen out from under the Pittsburgh Steelers, because all these teams are submitting their picks like 20 minutes in advance, and I don't know what's taking Roger Goodell so dang long to announce these. So let's move it along. It's great that the picks are coming in and they've shortened the time, and I think it's doing its job, but you got to announce the picks. I don't want to see another, dude from Nationwide or whatever, or, not picking on Nationwide, but like they use those for like as part of their sales packages, or they bring out, here's Lynn Swann, and Lynn Swann's a legend, and I'm not besmirching his name because I would be cut off and you would not hear anything from me because the guy in charge of putting me on air is very partial to Lynn Swann. But I'm just saying, like, do we have to do this every single pick? Can we just get to the pick? So we'll see if that happens in round 2, as I see Roger Goodell with, oh God, Pat McAfee's on the stage. Ugh. Okay. Well, that sets a bad tone for the evening. Broncos got to wait a while, but maybe George Payton and Sean get a little aggressive here. We'll follow along as this goes on. But right now, we want to hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right. I always like to start with the bad news when I'm doing a bad news, good news situation. So, Ray, why don't you give me some dealer's choice, some Nuggets audio for story number 1? Altitude Radio on the call, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. The Denver Nuggets showed no resistance to the Minnesota Timberwolves last night, 113-97. They are now down 2-1 in the series, but that's not really the story here. The story here is bigger than just one game or one series. The question I've been asking myself, and I see that a lot of people are asking the same question, but I think it's the only place that you can arrive at. Do the Denver Nuggets still want to win a title? Like, and they're showing that want. Having fight. This team just has no fight in it. And this Minnesota Timberwolves team, they're starving for a title. And why I say it's bigger than one game or one series, we've seen this every year in the playoffs after they won a title. We always arrive at this place at one point or another. Do the Nuggets have the desire, the want to win another title and to do what it takes? It's not, I guess that's the way I would put it. It's not do they want to win a title? Of course they do. Do they want to do the things necessary to win a title? I'm not so sure. I see Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic doing everything they can and unfortunately failing over the last 5 quarters, but I see no one on the floor giving them any help. And Aaron Gordon's out of the game last night, and his absence was noticed. But I see some other guys who maybe won a title with the Nuggets, who were brought in to help the Nuggets win another title, and they do not look like they are willing to do what is necessary to win a title. And I look at that Minnesota team, and I get everyone around here was super upset about what Jaden McDaniels said. A lot of pearl clutching going on. It'd be nice if the basketball team did anything about it. Nuggets did nothing about what Jaden McDaniels said the other day. They didn't answer him back through the media, and they certainly didn't answer him back on the basketball court. It's a lot of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray save us, but also where you got to want to save yourself. Do something to help Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. It's clear they're struggling. This team is just, they are not bought in to the level they need to be to win another title. And it's being exacerbated by a team that is a nemesis of theirs, that is a rival of theirs, that is in many ways a difficult matchup for them. I get it. But this team just, I mean, they had nothing last night. Absolutely nothing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was an embarrassment in a game that historically, if you win the series. And what bothers me even more, and Ray and I were talking about this during one of the breaks, Christian Brown sitting there saying, we're not going to panic. We know who we are. Yeah, dude, that's kind of the problem, is who you are. I'm saying who you are as a team is not what it needs to be. And I know you're not going to panic, but maybe you should. Like, that's an emotion that I can kind of latch onto and say, okay, this team understands what's going on here. Being chill and, steady as she goes, stoic. Like, that's fine until the spit hits the fan. And then it's like, you got to show that you got some emotion here, that you understand what's going on. You're on the verge of bowing out earlier than you did last year. You're not even going to be in the same zip code as Oklahoma City by the end of these playoffs, let alone taking them on again and getting your revenge. Do they forget winning a title? Do you at least want to see OKC again? Do you at least want that opportunity? Doesn't seem like they do. And I said it before the series when I was entertaining the now distinct, not possibility, probability that the Denver Nuggets bow out in the first round. You got to look at David Adelman. I mean, clearly, and it's not, if the conversations become, and I got some texts last night throwing out Dan Hurley and Steve Kerr. I don't know that it's going to be about the deficiencies of David Adelman as a coach so much as it is a referendum on the players that the message was not resonating towards the end with Michael Malone and is not resonating right now with David Adelman. I kind of look at this and I say, is it really David Adelman's fault? Or are we starting to get a clearer picture of where the Denver Nuggets are right now? And that is clearly just cool with one championship. And look, a lot of players in NBA history never even got that. But that's not what this was supposed to be. At least they were supposed to have the chance to win another one. They haven't even gone close since. Matter of when, not if. That's what it feels like. Game 4 tomorrow night, 6:30 on 740 KVOR. But there is another team that we're following through their playoffs, and they are not disappointing us right now. Here's story number 2. Connor McGahey on the call again, Altitude Sports Radio. You heard that on 740 KVOR last night. The Colorado Avalanche, despite having not nearly as much motivation as their opponent, being up 2-0 in the series, despite maybe not playing their best game, yet they still found a way to win. 4-2 as they push the Kings to the brink of elimination, and the contrast between these two teams could not be more stark. The Avalanche did not have their A game last night, but Scott Wedgwood to the rescue a few times in that game, certainly, but they kept pushing. They didn't have it, but they kept pushing. They were in the fight, and a couple of opportunities popped up over the course of the game. The turnover on the power play leading to Lekkonen's goal, the bounce off of Gabriel Landeskog's shot. Like, you don't get those breaks. You can't take advantage of those opportunities unless you're at least engaged and battling. And this team just has a killer instinct right now, a want to, that the Denver Nuggets don't. And it's a shame that the Nuggets don't, but it's a joy to watch the Colorado Avalanche. Basically with the mentality of who says this series has to go more than 4? What game are we supposed to allow LA to get? The why they have it and the Nuggets don't, I think it's how their stars are wired, or how the guys who already won a cup are wired. Gabriel Landeskog, like, he's the ultimate embodiment of this. He could have tapped out with this injury and missing multiple seasons. He didn't. He worked to try and get back so he could win another one. I think Nathan McKinnon is wired to not be satisfied. I think Artturi Lehkonen plays a style of hockey that tells you he's not satisfied with just winning one. And they brought back a Nazem Kadri, who got a taste of the other world, how the other half lives in Calgary. He's like, I hate this. I want to win again. And then you bring in a Brock Nelson, who really wants to win. And you bring in Scott Wedgwood, who does not squander a single day on the ice because he knows how close he was to being completely out of the league. I think it's the makeup of the players they have on the roster, ultimately. Whether they're players that were part of the core that won a Stanley Cup, or whether they're the players that Chris McFarland has brought along the way, they just have a group that wants it as much as they did back in 2022. So Avs 4-2, the final. Brock Nelson with an empty netter. Cale Makar pops up with his first goal of the series. That's a positive sign. Artturi Lehkonen, Gabriel Landeskog with the other two. And Scott Wedgwood, tremendous again. I still don't see a reason to go to Mackenzie Blackwood, even for Game 4, Sunday afternoon, 4:30 on Extra Sports 1300. Story number 3 has no audio accompaniment, but it's the first round of the NFL draft, sans the Denver Broncos. And I thought it was an interesting first round. I thought the story of the first round was a lot of teams reached. especially at the wide receiver position. It started with Tennessee at 4. Carnell Tate has never been a number 1 wide receiver. He was never the number 1 wide receiver at Ohio State, and you're bringing him in to be the number 1 target with Cam Ward at pick 4, and then it compounded from there. I just saw a lot of teams reaching on players, but I think more what I want to focus on, because we found this out with Bo Nix, learn this, you got to do your own draft. Titans like Carnell Tate. They needed a wide receiver. They liked him the best of all the receivers. They made their pick. Okay, fine. But I think the reaching created opportunity for some other teams. My 2 favorite picks of the first round, Caleb Downs going pick 11 to Dallas, and Reuben Bain going 15 to Tampa. I think if you're a Cowboys fan or a Bucs fan, you're over the moon about what your team came away with last night. And it was only possible through some of these teams reaching and creating a domino effect. And a little bit the Chiefs trading up. I think that played a role too, with them jumping Washington and New Orleans, who I'm sure would have taken Mansour Delane if they had the opportunity. It forced them to go in other directions and kind of created this domino effect. But Bucs, big winner of night 1. Love the pick from the Dallas Cowboys. They got another guy in the first round, a pass rusher, which makes their night even better. But Caleb Downs to Dallas is love that pick. And also shout out, because we usually spend most of our time trashing on these guys. I thought Cleveland went about it the right way. They address offensive line first, knowing that there would still be a quality wide receiver for them with their second pick, and they got a quality wide receiver with Concepcion from Texas A&M. So good on Cleveland as well. But that opens up some unique opportunities for the Denver Broncos here tonight. A couple of picks have gone by in the second round of the NFL draft. We'll take a break. I'll tell you what those are, and we'll start setting the table to see if the Denver Broncos can come away with something good at 62. You're listening to Drive Time Sports on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. 3 picks into the second round of the NFL draft. And to get you updated, Dejon Stribling, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, goes to San Francisco, who put in quite a bit of work this offseason in strengthening their wide receiver core. But both Kirk and Evans are on the wrong side of the age line. So those guys are there for now. Stribling there for the future. Chase Basantis of Texas A&M, interior lineman, would have been good for the Broncos, but I think Pregnon has a little bit more flexibility. The player out of Oregon. But certainly offensive line is one of the things we're looking for the Broncos. Chase Basantis goes to A&M, or from A&M goes to Arizona. Interior blocker for Jeremiah Love, so good on the Cardinals for doing that. TJ Parker, the Bills struggle to find pass rushers continues, and they pick up another one out of Clemson. And then the Houston Texans have just selected, and they are taking Caden McDonald, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State. So that's where we're at. The Giants are up next, followed by the Raiders and the Browns. And then the most important pick of the second round, the entire draft, at pick 40 overall, the Kansas City Chiefs will make their selection. Broncos still got to wait a while, but right now, nothing off the board that you are super bummed about losing if you're the Denver Broncos. So, so far, so good for the Broncos. Like the pick by Arizona. I think that's and never have it too many pass rushers. So I guess I like Arizona and Buffalo's pick. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to text into the show. I'll go to producer Ray for a text. What subject is this on, Ray? Okay, let me have it. Really good text. I will say the one thing I got pushed back against, I can buy into basically everything that you say there. I really don't think this team feels the pressure. And I think that's the problem. I don't think the players feel the responsibility that they should feel for having an all-time great player on their roster. I don't think they feel pressure at all. I think they don't feel enough pressure. I think they feel like Nikola Jokic is there to make them better instead of them doing everything they can to make sure this guy is allowed to do what he does. So I got pushed back against that part. The Jokic of it all, I think he is. I think you can say he gets mentally run down. What were you saying, Ray? Oh, yeah. I think he is. I think he is mentally exhausted. From and Jamal Murray too. Let's bring Jamal Murray into this conversation as well. This guy, I thought, carried them through 7 quarters of basketball in games 1 and 2. So the fact that the two of them look so shell-shocked again against the Wolves, again against the playoffs, I thought this organization had made progress. since then. But there is such a weight on, and I don't know that Jokic, and maybe this is a somewhat of a knock on him. I think he is somewhat complicit in terms of, not wanting it more than the other team. I think he wants it, and I think he wants it more than some of his teammates do. But I think he is just under the weight so much about having to carry this team, and we're back to the non-Jokic minutes being so bad for the Denver Nuggets in this series, and he feels like he's got to get back out there. And look, all that being said, you got to be better. Like Nikola Jokic, you can point the finger in a lot of directions. That dude played like absolute trash last night. He did. And it's most difficult with him because you know that he does so much, and yet you need more. And maybe that's not fair, but that's what we ask of the greatest player in franchise history, greatest players in the world. I mean, how many years, people knock LeBron James because he lost NBA finals, and like, go back and look at the finals that LeBron James lost. He is far from the first guy that needs to be blamed. Right? But it's this double-edged sword. When you reach the level that Nikola Jokic has, you are now expected to be consistently, historically great all the time. And the good news is with Nikola Jokic, he usually delivers. But I certainly think that the players that need to do more in Game 4 and beyond are not named Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, but we can also at the same time point out Jokic and Murray and say that they were horrendous, absolutely horrendous last night. It is a team game, basketball, is it not? And I think it was a top to bottom team failure by the Denver Nuggets in a game they really needed to get. Really good text. I think you're right. I think Jokic, it's wearing on him. He wants it. He cares. Maybe not as much as Rudy Gobert cares. I think you're seeing that in some of these matchups. But I think there are a lot of other players on the Denver Nuggets that need to show that they care, that they want it, before I really hone in on Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, because I feel like they do what is required. Yeah, Ray. Mm-hmm. I think you're right, but I also think that the Tim Hardaways are a little bit of the problem here. Is that you got a lot of guys that are waiting to get the ball out on the perimeter. Like, can Tim Hardaway go get the ball? Like, it's a very nuanced discussion. And I do think you bring up a good point that there are some players that you trust a little bit more for the Denver Nuggets, and you want those players when things are going wrong to get the basketball. But I think it's just a priority list. And my priority list is I think there are too many guys, and Tim Hardaway is one of these players that is waiting to get the ball given to him so he could take a three. And meanwhile, the Wolves are just going right through the teeth of the Nuggets defense. And I think there could be an argument that Tim Hardaway needs the ball a little bit more than some other players. But I think that the Nuggets need to be cutting to the basket more. I think how many games do they have to shoot poorly from behind 3-point arc before they say we got to try something else. I mean, that's why I was screaming in that second quarter of game 2. They got a couple of threes not to go down, and it just felt like they were losing momentum. And it's like, make sure you get some points on the board. And the Nuggets just never did it. And you know the way game 2 went. And I thought there was more of that in game 3. But there are certainly players that you trust a little bit more. And I guess Tim Hardaway would be that over the former Kansas Jayhawk. I think certainly. Mhm. I don't think he's a rim protector. I don't think they have any rim protection. The whole premise of Jonas Valanciunas was that he was so similar to Nikola Jokic, but also being similar to Nikola Jokic means you don't protect the rim. I don't know that. I mean, we have now we talked about this yesterday, you and I, that there are still some bad ideas. Now we are in the no bad ideas. I'm just saying I don't know that Jonas Valanciunas provides them rim protection. And David Adelman shouted him out. But Zeke Naji is the embodiment of great that you have the want to, that you're working really hard, but we do also need a little bit of talent with that. You know, and not to say he has no talent, but I'm saying we need a little bit more talent. We need that want to, and maybe this is David Adelman's angle here. Let me shower Zeke Naji with praise and hope that other players that will rely on more get the message and go, all right, I'm going to play with Zeke Naji level intensity. If Christian Brown played with Zeke Naji's effort, then we'd really have something with Christian Brown. But the problem is Zeke Naji is so limited as a player that I don't know that you want to throw all your eggs into that basket. Well, yeah, I think again it comes down to the priority list. Okay. First, can we get somebody on the Denver Nuggets to help out Nikola Jokic? Like, can the Nuggets do something to get Gobert off of him for 2 seconds so he could try and do something? And then if they do that, and still Jokic is settling for threes, that's the moment, if I'm David Adelman, where I say, all right, enough. But they're not like, what other choice does he have? It's like either I turn around above above the free throw line, I turn around and try to back down Rudy Gobert, which is making me as tired as it's making him, or I take a three. I mean, it seems like those are Jokic's only choices on most times down the floor. So I say, let's do some, and it just goes to my overall point is that it's not one thing. There's one thing at the heart of all of this, but it's not one thing that's going wrong. And so you just got to decide, what do we fix first, or what can we fix first? They got to figure out a way for Nikola Jokic to have a little bit easier time, and Jamal Murray a little bit easier time than they're having. And then we'll worry about what Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic do with that opportunity. Mhm. I'm sure he misses his horses all the time. He always misses his horses. Um, Right. If I had a horse, I would miss it. Yeah. No, he was bad last night. To Dave's point, he was not good last night. But is this do you look at Nikola Jokic and find most of the fault with him, or do you look and say somebody's got to give the guy help? And I think I start there. But Nikola Jokic, I mean, if you want to criticize Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray for last night, be my guest. I mean, nobody is safe after a pathetic performance like that. But I just think the guys that need to step it up first are the supporting cast. And then if that happens, then I would expect Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to get going a little bit more. But I mean, let's be real about this. It's probably too little, too late in this series. I think we're heading that way. 719 247 1313. If you want to get any of your last minute thoughts in on this Friday, couple more picks in the NFL draft, including the Cleveland Browns. Man, Shador Sanders has got to be the happiest guy in the NFL. I'll tell you why next on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. The NFL draft rolling right along. Let's get you updated here. So we had a bit of a run on edge rushers with TJ Parker of Clemson going to Buffalo at overall pick 35. I think that's the guy that the Kansas City Chiefs wanted. So the Chiefs, a few picks later, go with R. Mason Thomas of Oklahoma. And then the Bengals followed up with Cassius Howell. Of course, they just picked up Dexter Lawrence, and they'll put Cassius Howell on the other side of him out of Texas A&M. So a little bit of a run on edge rushers, which if you are a Broncos fan, you are okay with. But let's see. So Dejon Stribling of Ole Miss, wide receiver, went to San Francisco. Chase Basantis, interior lineman, went to A&M. Now he's going to block for Jeremiah Love. So I do like that pick for Arizona. TJ Parker, again, Bills trying to get a pass rusher out of Clemson. Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, goes to Houston. Colton Hood, corner from Tennessee. Not Jermon McCoy. Interesting. Went Hood, not McCoy, for the Giants. And then at pick 38, the Raiders took Tredan Stukes, safety from Arizona. And this is why I teased before the break. Shedeur Sanders, last draft weekend was not great for Shedeur Sanders, right? Wasn't a fun time. This draft weekend is amazing for Shedeur Sanders because the probable question mark starter for the Cleveland Browns this year has picked up an offensive lineman and 2 wide receivers. The latest being Denzel Boston, who went to Washington. Not to be confused with Denzel Washington, who was in a movie that was set in Boston. So Denzel Boston goes to Cleveland. So he's picked up Concepcion and Boston as his wide receivers. He gets arguably the best lineman in the draft with Spencer Fano of Utah. There's some conversation, but I think Shedeur Sanders has got to be quite pleased with what his team has done for him, or perhaps Dylan Gabriel or Deshaun Watson are happy, because who knows what's going on with that quarterback situation under Todd Monken now in Cleveland. But whoever they choose to be their starting quarterback is going to feel pretty good about some of the draftees onto this team. Kristen Miller, defensive tackle from Georgia, just went 42 overall to the New Orleans Saints. So the next 3 teams on the board, Miami, New York, that being the Jets, and the Baltimore Ravens. Denver Broncos, like 20 picks away still. But I will say I have not found the moment yet where the Broncos should trade up. I think it's if George Payton has his druthers, he wants to stay and wants to utilize all of these picks to replenish the depth on this football team. But Sean Payton, I'm sure, is eager to get someone that maybe could help the Broncos now. And there's still some of those guys available on the board. So we'll see. But right now, it doesn't look like the way the picks are going, I don't see that the Broncos need to jump up. And you could also ask the question, can they jump up? Still a big move to get from 62 to 43. And I think the Miami Dolphins are probably done helping out the Denver Broncos. So it'll still be a while for Oh, my goodness. And as I say that, Jacob Rodriguez, the inside linebacker from Texas Tech, just went to Miami at pick number 43. So now the other one is Anthony Hill Jr. of Texas. So it can happen just that quickly. All of a sudden, somebody at a position that you're looking at goes off the board, and then you got to start thinking, can we move up? I still think it's too high for the Broncos to move up, even at pick 44. But one of the guys I had penciled in, I think when the draft began, is Jadarian Price of Notre Dame. He goes 32 to Seattle last night. It's Jacob Rodriguez, Anthony Hill Jr. of Texas, and it's Emmanuel Pregnon of Oregon. Those were the guys I had for the Denver Broncos on what should be their wish list. Two of those guys are now gone. So Broncos might be needing to think outside the box here, or outside of positions of need. And I'm looking at just ESPN's best available. Yeah, some corners. Eli Stowers, tight end, but I wouldn't want the Broncos using their highest pick in this draft on a tight end. I don't know that Davis Webb's offense is going to be that much different than Sean Payton's. A lot of edge rushers and a lot of corners and wide receivers. Yeah, I don't know that. I think this is looking more like best player available, and then you're looking at it and like, okay, who's the odd man out here? Because I see corners, I see wide receivers, I see edge rushers, and I see the Denver Broncos with not needing any of those things. So could end up being best player available here for Denver. The way, and again, changes that quickly. Jacob Rodriguez, like the pick from Miami. I've liked what Miami has done. Another edge rusher goes off the board to Detroit, and it happens to be a Michigan Wolverine, so that's fun for them. Derek Moore going 44th overall. Who would need interior or inside linebackers that's in front of Denver? I think there are a couple teams, honestly. Ray, what do your Steelers need at pick 53? A receiver. So there's you're going to feel better about everything that happened last night. I don't think they're going to have like 5 wide receivers to choose from when they are on the. No, you don't still okay. It does. I get it. I'm feeling it right now because the Bills took the pass rusher the Chiefs wanted. Let's see. Who's going to be available for you? Zachariah Branch, maybe a Georgia. He wasn't picked. I think if they're looking wide receiver, they'll be all right. But Derek Moore of Michigan going 44th overall to the Lions. That leaves Baltimore, Tampa, and Indianapolis with their first, the next 3 picks. Indy making their first pick of the draft because of the Sauce Gardner trade. So we'll see what the Broncos end up with. Only the 1 pick tonight, and then they'll have a plethora of picks tomorrow. Of course, we'll be back on Monday to recap the draft. But in the meantime, our primary focus still on the Avalanche and the Nuggets. Nuggets tomorrow night, 6:30, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, don't know why I need to say that. And then Sunday, the Avs in their game 4 at 4:30. Great place to watch it. How about the Brass Tap? We're partnering with the Brass Tap to do some things during the playoffs. Would love to have you supporting them, the people that support us. So check out Brass Tap if you're looking for a place to watch those games, or you can hear the games on Extra Sports 1300 Sunday for Avs and Saturday for Nuggets on KVOR. My thanks to Ray Dominguez in the Extra Sports 1300 studios, and thanks to you for listening. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back Monday, KVOR and Extra Sports 1300.